So Tna Impact took place once again in Orlando, Florida. The show starts with Magnus coming to the ring with a turnbuckle in his hand. Magnus says that Eric Young didn't beat him for the title and that Abyss didn't do enough to help him keep it. He tells Abyss to come out, and Abyss comes to the ring. Magnus calls Abyss a bum and says that he failed at doing his job. Abyss reminds him that he would have been canned by Montel Porter if he had come down to ringside during the title match. Magnus reminds Abyss that he is his bitch, but says that he no longer wants him and terminates the working relationship. Abyss tells Magnus that he valued their friendship more than the cash and calls him a dick. He wants a match with Magnus, but Magnus tells him that he's not a TNA employee. Then Montel Porter comes to the ring. Porter says that despite his beef with Abyss, he's willing to give him a chance to get a contract if he beats Magnus in a match later in the show. This segment was okay. This is the only place that TNA can take this as far as building a program between Magnus and Abyss. If Magnus were to regain the belt, Abyss would be coming for the title. If not, they'll still go. However, Magnus said nothing about regaining the title from Eric Young, and you have a pay-per-view main event that is supposed to be pushed, and it hasn't even been announced yet. Inexcusable. So then we see Ethan Carter III and Rockstar Dud backstage. Next. So then we have Kurt Angle versus Rockstar Dud. Angle squashes Dud, but Ethan clips Angle from behind and tries to lock in the leg bar submission. But Jeff Willow comes down with his umbrella to make the save. Ethan going after Angle was the reboot to their program leading into the tag team match at Sacrifice. And that was the only positive here. So then we see the beautiful people backstage. Angelina Love and Velvet Sky say that they're going to give Madison Rayne a makeover. That's it. So then we see Montel Porter on his phone as he walks through the hallway. He goes into a space and Kenny King is on the couch. Porter chastises King for helping himself to doing what he wants. But King says that he was going to do that anyway, since Porter failed to see that he would be more beneficial as the top guy. Porter decides to give King what he wants and makes a match against an unknown opponent. There should have been more tension between King and Porter, particularly after their exhibition match, but the segment was fine. So then we see Madison Rayne come to the ring. Madison dares the beautiful people to come down and give her that makeover. Angelina and Velvet come down to the ring and they give her the makeover by double teaming her and putting the signature paper bag on her head, which is tired. The desperation to make the beautiful people relevant again now includes bringing back a gimmick that no one cares about. Madison versus Angelina at Sacrifice is interesting to no one. I'm going to go ahead and get this over with by just mentioning it once. The Mr. Anderson segments with Mother Shaw and eventually Sam Shaw were dumb. It's not about whether you would fuck Mother Shaw or not. It's about how these on-location segments don't advance storylines and waste the time that could be used more efficiently. Even with this, Mr. Anderson had the fight with Shaw but never came up from the basement when the cameraman left. stop wasting the time grabbing the water from this creative well and use it better. So then we see Gail, Kim, Madison Rain, and Brittany backstage. Gail says that Angelina and Velvet are wrecking the women's division that belongs to her. She tells Madison that even though they're not friends, she wants Madison to be her partner against the beautiful people in the match later on. Madison agrees. After Gail leaves, Brittany tells Madison that she'll be attached to her hip, but Madison tells her to fuck off. She leaves and Brittany looks dejected. If Gail ends up turning face, that will be the biggest mistake that TNA makes. She is the nucleus that puts over the faces. So who would they have to replace her? No one. As far as Brittany goes, the hint is that the constant rejection from Madison will lead to her turning heel. She needs to remain a face. She's better suited for that. Not just for herself, but for the division. So then we see Kenny King come to the ring for his match against his unknown opponent. Then Robert Lashley comes to the ring. So we have Kenny King versus Robert Lashley. Decent match. The match ends with Lashley executing an overhead belly-to-belly suplex on King. Lashley comes at King with blows, a kick, and comes off the ropes with a clothesline. Lashley whips King into the corner and charges, hitting him with a shoulder block. He picks King up on his shoulder and dumps him to the mat. Lashley charges the corner, but King puts his foot up. However, Lashley grabs King's foot and spins him, but King nails him with an enziguri. King goes to the middle rope and comes off, but Lashley catches him in the air and gives him a vertical suplex. Lashley charges and King leaves the ring. He chooses not to return and the referee counts him out. The winner of the match by countout, Robert Lashley. The spot with Lashley catching King and suplexing him was impressive. The finish was terrible, with King simply giving up. So then we see Robert Roode and James Storm backstage. Storm wants to know if Roode is ready for the tag team match, but he seems to say it as if they're still boys. Roode reminds him of the attack at the bar, and Storm goes further by recalling the infamous beer bottle smash that led to Roode becoming world champion. Since Storm is not willing to give up those thoughts, Roode wants to know why Storm is pairing up with him. Storm tells him that it's because they're the best, and that they know each other too well. They each acknowledge that it's about putting down his arch rival and making things bad for him. As much as the burn is present from many fans to see Roode and Storm become a permanent tag team again, they would be better off as singles wrestlers for creative purposes, namely the world title scenario as future challengers for Eric Young. So then we have Austin Aries versus Montel Porter. Solid match. The match ends with Aries delivering a discus punch to Porter. He goes for the brainbuster, but Porter goes over and behind Aries and executes a release German suplex. Porter goes for his drive-by kick, but Aries grabs his leg and hits Porter with a shin breaker, followed by a leg hook Saito suplex. Aries charges the corner and hits Porter with the running dropkick. He goes for the pin, but Porter kicks out. Aries goes to the top rope and comes off with the 450, but Porter moves out of the way. He hits Aries with his drive-by kick and gets the 3. The winner of the match, Montel Porter. Porter has nothing to gain from going over since he is in an administrative position, so it is questionable as to why he would win this match. Aries returns from being absent for 6 weeks, gives a solid promo, and then loses this match. Storylines that require a wrestler to be absent from the show should be reserved for someone who is not over that much And even if it is someone who is over that much, it should be an injury angle. Otherwise, put your best talent on the show. And Aries deserves that. So then we see a video segment on Sonata. We see him beating Aries for the X Division title, being put over by Muda, and training. Good segment, and the build continues for Sonata. So then we have Robert Roode and James Storm versus Bully Ray and Gunner. Decent match. The match ends with Bully Ray doing his pseudo Dusty Rhodes shtick with James Storm, peppering him with punches. He elbows an approaching Robert Roode and slams Storm. Bully Ray signals Gunner to go to the top rope as he spreads Storm's legs so that they can do their waza. Bully Ray yells for the table, and Gunner sets it up outside the ring. Roode comes up on Gunner, but Gunner hits him and lays him out on the table with a headbutt. Bully Ray comes off the ring apron with an elbow drop, but Roode rolls off the table and Bully Ray goes through the wood. Gunner DDTs Storm and goes for the pin, but Roode breaks it up. Gunner picks Roode up and delivers the Fireman's Carry facebuster. However, Storm nails Gunner with the super kick and gets the 3. The winners of the match, Robert Roode and James Storm. The match was fine, but there was no verbal interaction between the pairings on this show. Nothing between Bully Ray and Roode. Nothing between Storm and Gunner. The topics that Storm and Roode discussed earlier that were directed at Bully Ray and Gunner could have been said to them instead of to each other. You have a pay-per-view to sell. So then we have the women's match. The Beautiful People versus Gail Kim and Madison Rayne. Okay match. The match ends with Gail applying a head scissors on Angelina. Velvet comes into the ring and delivers a front drop kick to Gail from behind. Gail goes after Velvet and Angelina jumps on her back with a sleeper hold. Gail rams her into the corner twice and tries to break the hold, but Angelina holds on. However, Gail delivers a backbreaker and makes the tag to Madison. Madison knocks Angelina around with forearms and takes her down with an enziguri. Velvet comes into the ring and Madison responds with a kick to the midsection and a kick to the head off the ropes. Madison rams Angelina into the turnbuckle, while outside, Velvet disposes of Gail Kim by popping her head into the ring apron. Velvet goes back into the ring and receives a spear from Madison. Angelina comes up behind Madison and rolls her up for the 3. The winners of the match, the Beautiful People. The match didn't do much to build up the women's title match at Sacrifice. Gail Kim being involved with the Beautiful People doesn't interest anyone, and it was done before. Gail should have a separate program going on, but since TNA hasn't pushed Brittany, who else is there? No one. Whose fault is that? So then we see a video segment with Mike Knox and Tna. Tna does her fire tricks, and Knox tells her that he has to get back to TNA and she wants to be there for him. Stay tuned. So then we see a video segment on the American Wolves, basically stating that they will face the Glorified Jobbers and Zema Ion in a handicap match for the World Tag Team Championship at Sacrifice. The visuals were good. Just win the belts again. That's it. So then we had the main event. Magnus versus Abyss. And before the match, Eric Young joins Tna and Taz at the table. Decent match. The match ends with Magnus coming off the ropes and Abyss grabbing him by the neck. Abyss tries to chokeslam Magnus, but Magnus kicks him in the knee. He then kicks Abyss in the other knee and grabs his leg in an attempt of a submission hold. But Abyss kicks him off, sending Magnus through the ropes to the outside. Magnus pulls Abyss to the ring post and tries to split his balls, but Abyss pulls Magnus into the ring post and Magnus goes down. Abyss goes outside and throws Magnus back into the ring. He goes for the chokeslam, but Magnus kicks him in the balls. The referee calls for the bell. The winner of the match by DQ, Abyss. Magnus gets a chair from outside and slams Abyss repeatedly with it. Young leaves the commentator's table, runs to the ring, and tries to grab Magnus from behind, but Magnus mule kicks him in the groin. Magnus slams Young with the chair in the same manner. He goes back and forth between Abyss and Young with the chair. Show ends. Where the hell was this guy when he was the champion? Magnus was a pussy when he had the belt, but when he loses the belt, we get this guy. Now, if Magnus were to regain the title, which guy would we get? This guy we just saw or the pussy we saw before? The answer to this question is dependent on whether he wins the belt at Sacrifice. If he doesn't, should it still matter which Magnus we see? Wrestlers seem to be the hungriest when they don't have the title. Maybe Magnus should stay hungry. I'm Tazmart 2002, and that was my Tna Impact Analysis for April 24th, 2014. If you're listening to me on YouTube, please leave your comments below. Click the like or dislike button. And if you subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. If you're listening to me on the Wrestling News Talk Facebook page, you can leave your comments below and click the like button if you like what I've been saying. If you have any comments or questions for me about TNA or wrestling in general, you can reach me on Twitter, Tazmart2002. That's TAZMARK2002. And if your comments exceed the 140, get at me with an email, Tazmart2002@gmail.com. And be sure to watch the TNA Impact review that I do with Chuck P live every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Chuck P's YouTube channel. If you can't watch us live, you can always watch the archive. Decent show. Decent show. TNA Sacrifice is this Sunday. Your main event is Eric Young defending the world title against Magnus. Yet TNA didn't officially announce this match until practically at the end of the show. This Sacrifice pay-per-view wasn't promoted properly, but that can be said about TNA pay-per-views in the past. With this one, the main event, which is supposed to be the anchor of the pay-per-view, is a last-minute announcement. Most people would say that Sacrifice should have been a special themed episode of Impact, and it should have been. Even with it done on a smaller scale, promotion is still the key. Whether you sell the steak or the sizzle of the steak, one has to be told that you have a steak and that it's worth eating. I'm Tazmart 2002. Gone.